AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Democrat of the day. We head up to 4B. John Hest is kind enough to join us. He's running for that seat. He's kind enough to take some time today to talk with us about his campaign. John, thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, Matt. I appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure here. We should just let everyone know where 4B is. It's basically, it's all the area, it goes over to Detroit Lakes, but it's the area not including Moorhead in that area, correct? Right. It'd be a good way to describe it, right?
Yep. It's all of Clay County with the exception of kind of the core of Moorhead and then a little bit of the rural northeast corner and then a bit of Becker County stretching out to Detroit Lakes. Yep.
Yeah. This is DFL. I think this is DFL territory, and it's one of those seats which, Republicans are looking at you. They're going to be targeting this race. This is why I want, and when a lot of people here this summer, we need door knockers. We need people to go up to 4B and go and campaign for John. This is going to be a big key. Let's give everyone an idea exactly who is John Hest.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the chance. So my name is John Hest. Like Matt said, I grew up on my family's farm up here in rural Norman County, just north of Fargo-Moorhead. I'm the fifth generation on my family's farm, so very familiar with issues facing family farmers and those in the ag industry. I have been very active with the Minnesota Farmers Union, lobbying on those issues affecting farmers in our state and rural communities more generally, both in St. Paul and D.C. Most of my career has been spent working in higher ed, so I work at M State Community and Tech College in Moorhead at the moment, helping students as an academic advisor there, helping them find college success. I also, kind of moonlight as a history and government teacher for some online classes at Tribal College in South Dakota. So that's my academic background in history. And I've seen firsthand the issues facing students. I've seen the issues facing parents in our rural districts. And I'm part of the reason I'm running is to fight for those students and parents and ensure they have access to that high quality, affordable public education all the way from pre-K to university. I'm also a proud member of MAPE Local 1502, one of the state employee unions. In that part, I serve on our meet and confer, so I'm meeting with administration to bring forward issues facing our members and hear from them about ongoing issues. I am running also to ensure that unions are protected and that we're fighting for working people in St. Paul. But like I said, all the above. I'm running for family farmers like my dad and my brother. I'm running to support my students. I'm running for, adult children of aging parents trying to find elder care for their mom or dad. I'm running for the entrepreneurs in their head, a passion for their community. Most of all, I'm running for my daughter, all of our kids up here to have access to the same world-class education, beautiful surroundings, caring community that combined to make my childhood here so great. So, yeah, thanks so much for having me on, Matt.
My pleasure. Let's break down a few of the things we just talked about. Let's get to the farmers first. Margins are god awful. It's something where you've got a lot of problems out there. It's a little bit better. I mean, one of the things from the offshoots of the Ukrainian war is that there's going to be a bit of a higher demand on some of the U.S. crops here that's there. But still, our margins for the family farmer are really bad. It does not help that many people have had to deal with a pandemic as well. Talk about how would you like to address the margin issue and allow farmers to be farmers without having to have 3 other jobs to make sure they can make it.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot that the state can do to help those family farms, make up, increase those margins a bit, ensure they're able to make a living wage. I think part of it that we don't always talk about is healthcare. I think, farmers, often they need a spouse or themselves working off the farm just so they can have access to health insurance, right? Mm-hmm. So something like a public option, I think, is a great place to start. So allowing farmers to buy into our state health insurance, I think, would be a great thing to help them have access to a high quality, low cost health care. I also think part of it too is that especially young farmers like my brother and others of his generation. They have to go into so much debt just to start if you have a couple of bad years, you can't push through it. You're stuck because you're having to take out these huge loans to pay for land and equipment and your inputs and all that kind of stuff. So, there's been this beginning farmer tax credit that we've done that my predecessor, Paul Marquardt, was instrumental in. And it's helpful, but I really think there's more we can do in providing some grants and tax breaks and those kinds of things to encourage young folks, because that's another issue with farming, is that it's an aging industry for sure. So, yeah.
Let's bring that back then to another thing that you'd mentioned about higher education, because I think there is one of the things that I think gets ignored, and I've lived in rural America numerous times, is that the idea of college or a higher education past high school is a different question when you get into rural America, because you want to bring people back. You want people to take over the farm or be in the auxiliary businesses that help support the agricultural industry. And generally, sometimes I don't know if the higher education system supports that. Talk a little bit about that and the idea of higher education from the perspective of the rural Minnesota student.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question, because it is an issue. I'm one who did, I left the University of Minnesota in the cities and then came back. So I'm one of those students. But yeah, it is, because I do think sometimes you get this impression from rural communities that, these colleges and universities in bigger cities are to some extent like stealing their young people or something like that, where they're, drawing them out and then they don't come back. Right. So I think there's a lot we can do to, ensure that they stick. For one thing, high quality rural higher education is, we've got some fantastic community and technical colleges in the state of Minnesota. Mm-hmm. So ensuring that those are fully funded, that students have access to those programs, that they can then turn around and use those skills within their communities, right? So things like trades, things like, transfer programs where they, start out at the local school and then maybe transition and then can come back a little easier. Some of that kind of stuff is a huge thing in ensuring we're funding those programs fully and those colleges fully, because I've seen firsthand some of the challenges that you look at Minnesota State's bonding proposal, and it's a lot of it's band-aids for systems that have invested for years. It's not expansion, it's not growth, it's trying to fix stuff that's falling apart. So investing in those and ensuring those students have opportunities locally, I think, is a huge part of it. And then also, investing, because I do think that there's still, farmers appreciate the work that happens at research universities and places like that, right? They grow University of Minnesota wheat strains or apples or other crops or what have you. So they appreciate that work. And extension is, it's an integral part of our rural communities. Just ensuring that we have that strong network of extension education that continues, ensuring that we're investing in agricultural research and keeping the University of Minnesota system and our Minnesota State system schools at the top of the pile when it comes to research in agriculture. There's a lot we can do. We've got some great public schools in the state, and I want to make sure we keep it that way.
John Hest joining us, Democrat of the Day, 4B up in the northwest part of the state. As a matter of fact, as I look at a map of your district, let's get into a little bit of the climate change issue, because I would be remiss if I didn't point out the entire a good chunk of your western side of your district, borders on the Red River of the North, which is a continual flooding problem. Imagine it's getting a little concerning right now as the spring melt is going on. Georgetown and Oakport, Comstock, as well as the community of Moorhead itself and the surrounding communities there. This is a recurring problem, and once again, we're getting this. We've just seen the last month. You guys have been hammered with extra fluid coming out of the sky. This is a big problem, especially when you're looking at those communities right on that river.
Right. Yeah, we've been, somewhat lucky this year in that we were so dry from last year still that it's, the ground sucked up a lot of that excess moisture. But yeah, flood mitigation is a huge issue too. We need to, and the ongoing diversion projects and things like that have been great, and they've been, buying out some of the landowners and in particularly vulnerable areas. But yeah, we need to ensure that we have that we're fully funding those efforts and continue those efforts. So, and that's not necessarily something that the state is taking the charge on. That's the Army Corps, and there's local but we certainly have a role to play in that fight. So yeah, ensuring that we're at the table, ensuring that we're doing everything we can so that that folks can continue to live here and not have to worry about flooding every year.
Yeah, well, and I think the state definitely could step up when it comes to, when it comes to buffer zones, to make sure that the cropland is not getting flooded in, better drainage issues there. I don't know. It is a tough river. I mean, you're going north, and so it is a little bit until they kind of start thawing up there by Winnipeg. It becomes a little bit of an issue. But I guess, that it is one of those things where that is, I think, a big issue that we need to bring more light to, because that's an issue for the most part we don't get a lot of here in the Twin Cities. But it is an issue that every year affects these communities, and especially if you've got a nice piece of farmland and you're near that river, you're keeping an eye on those flood levels every single year.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's affecting, plant dates. It's affecting, the obviously the moisture of the soil and your ability to start planting. Yeah, it's an issue, but it's part of the reason why we're blessed with such high quality soil is because we get that silt from the river. But we need to make sure we're doing everything we can to mitigate that flooding.
One last issue I want to bring up with you, something you kind of mentioned, and I think this is something that escapes a lot of people too, and I'm glad you mentioned it, and that's elder care. You have an aging population in rural Minnesota. We just had a great, a great example of the inadequacies of the healthcare industry in rural Minnesota with this pandemic here. There's a lot we can do, and we need to do about this. Talk a little bit more about making sure that the elderly population of Minnesota has what they need in regards to the healthcare industry.
Yeah, sure. I think there's a lot we can do. I mean, part of it is just ensuring that we have enough providers to staff these nursing homes and assisted livings and other senior care facilities, which leads back to fully funding our community and tech colleges as well as our state colleges, because they're literally in many places they've got the facilities, they've got the demand, but they just don't have the folks to staff them. So. So I think part of the governor's efforts to offer some free CNA courses and that kind of stuff was great. I would love to see that continued and expanded to ensure we have enough CNAs out here to staff some of those places. I also think there's more we can do with some of the student loan forgiveness and some of that kind of stuff to ensure, again, that folks are entering those high need fields and able to afford to enter them and stay communities. I also think there's plenty more we can do in regards to healthcare infrastructure too. I mean, we've got you've had consolidations, you've had clinics closing, you've had it's hard. It's understandable if you're one of these giant healthcare companies. A rural clinic is not a big moneymaker, right? It serves a vital service to its community, but it's not making money hand over fist by any stretch. So just ensuring that the state's doing everything it can to ensure that, there's different things I think we can do just to ensure that either those companies are incentivized to keep those clinics open and staffed and offering vital services, or to somehow, incentivize the creation of cooperative community-based healthcare. I think there's some opportunity there too. So
yeah, I agree with you. I think wholeheartedly. You got to look at the salaries too. The people. I mean, you're asking them to take care of the greatest generation right now. That's that's in a lot of these senior centers. That's the greatest generation. Right. It should not be this job or I work at Arby's. It should be something where we're paying these people considering what they're dealing with. It is a far larger issue. And so I agree wholeheartedly with that. And maybe more encouragement of trade schools or nursing schools, whatever the school we need, that, we'll cover some of the intuition on that to get the people into those buildings.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think I think you're absolutely right. I think we need to ensure that the wages are where they need to be and make sure that these folks have access to, if they want to organize unions, they have access to that kind of stuff too, right? To fight for themselves. So that's piece of it too that I think is missing in a lot of parts of rural Minnesota.
John Hest, I got to give you credit on one thing, John. I've seen cute family pictures on a website, but holy God, man, you got a cute family, man. That's a great photo of you on your website.
Thank you.
Yes. I want to drive people to this. Go see the picture. It's a cute picture. John, what's the website people should go to find out about your campaign?
Yeah. So my website, it's just Hest for House, HESTFOR house.com. And it's the same on all social media. So Facebook.com/Hest for House, Twitter.com/Hest for House, secure.actblue.com/donate/Hest for House. And there's a donate button on the website too. That's probably a little easier, but There's my daughter just turned 30, so definitely recommend that.
It's adorable. That's a great one. That actually might be the best one I've seen. Nicely done, sir. John Hest, 4B. Okay, so you've heard him. You need to get up there. Now, first of all, donations help. That's a big district. He's got a lot of driving to do. Yep. Get up there and make a donation if you can. You also need to get up there and door knock. And this is not a joke, people. Help your local DFLer. But if you're in one of these safe districts where it's a slam dunk, the DFL is going to win, get up to 4B. This is a seat Republicans are going to throw everything they can at to try to get. John's a great candidate. We need him in St. Paul. If you door knock on every door in that district, the DFL will win, and that's the key. So this summer, get up there, have some fun. It's a great part of the state as well. HestForHouse.com. Donate, volunteer. John, all my best. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt, for having me on.
My absolute pleasure. John Hest. Hest for Minnesota House 4B. HestForHouse.com. HestForHouse.com. I'll link to everything on social media a little bit later on. Let's take a break. Come on back. Final segment when we do return. It's the Matt McNeil Show on AM 950.